Okay guys, we're going to try a top-down setup with the big logs at the bottom, middle-size splits in the middle, and the small split on top. All I have is this little group of sticks in between the logs. I don't even have any spacers really in there, just a little bit. I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, but we'll give it a try. A little spacer down there and a little spacer down there to get the air underneath this pile. And I've got a egg carton with some sticks in it and a little bit of canola oil drizzled on it. We're going to give this a shot and see if this works. So the purpose of this is to heat up this baffle really quickly. This top plate with the holes in it, that will reburn the gases from the logs and make this a much cleaner start and a much cleaner burn overall. We'll see if this works with just the egg carton with the sticks in it and really no other kindling other than what's between the logs. So what should happen here is this top will start burning, and then little coals of the heat will travel down and catch this lower level of sticks in between. Not quite there yet, but it's starting a little bit over here. And then continue down all the way down. Well, let's see what happens here. I'm going to close the door. Seems to work much better when I close the door on this. I'm going to pause it here for a second and turn off the light. Okay, I just started that back up again without the light. Hopefully it's a little easier to see. Got the draft fully open. We're getting a little bit of smoke, a little more smoke than I'd like, a little more steam than I'd like. We're at the 1 minute mark here. You can see in the back there these tubes, the secondary tubes, the circles that you can see the fire kind of bending around. That's your secondary flame starting. Air is going up through those tubes and burning the gas. So that's what you want. That's what we're after. Now you can see the second row has caught fire, starting to drop down. The fire looks really good at the top right now. We're 2 minutes in. I like the way that's burning for sure. This is oak that we have in there. It's pretty well seasoned oak. It's not perfect oak, it's not 3-year oak, it's maybe 2-year oak at this point from this stack. Coming up to a 3-minute mark here. Doing really well. For such little amount of kindling and such an easy setup, I think this is doing really well. I'm surprised actually. You can see the third level down is just starting to catch now. Just getting a little bit of flame down there. You can see the top, the way these secondary tubes are burning. I mean, that's exactly what we want. Nice and clean fire up there. Strong fire. Third level's starting to catch. We didn't have to use any paper. We didn't really use any artificial fire starters. We just used a little bit of canola oil drizzled onto that egg carton with the wood chips and the really just little mini sticks in there. That's really all it was. Third level's catching now on both sides. These splits are actually kind of big to do this. You should really have some more smaller to middle-sized splits in here, but I'm just seeing how far we can go with a little bit bigger size wood and a little bit less kindling to see if we can still get a really good start and a good burn. Third level's starting to catch now. It's probably half lit. Don't have much smoke. We had a little bit in the beginning for the first minute. We're getting a little bit of smoke, or it could be steam, or a little combination of both. But this is a pretty good burn here. Still have the draft fully open. Flue temperature still isn't very hot. It looks like it's about 200, 225 on a single wall flue pipe. So we still need a ways to go to heat this guy up. We want to get up to about 350, 375, maybe even 400 for the start, and let it get nice and hot before we start turning it down, turning the draft down. Okay, we're at the 6-minute mark here. Third level's caught. Still burning really well. Let's see if there's anything down below yet. No, there really won't be much anything down there for a while. There's a couple coals, cold coals from the night before. But probably take a little bit longer for those to catch, but they will, and they will help. You can see how much less smoke this produces than if we did a bottom up. And if we did a bottom up with this amount of sticks and that one egg carton, there's no way that this would light. I would never get it to light. It would smoke like heck, and then it would go out. This way, we're good to go. And there's just so much less smoke. It's going to create so much less creosote up in your pipes. It's hotter. I mean, the top of this is already warm. It's kicking off heat. It's lighting well. I don't have to open the door. I don't have to push any logs around. I don't have to add any logs to this. This will fully burn down, and then I'll just do a full reload. So there's no babysitting this. The only thing you have to do is adjust the draft when it gets hot, and that's probably about anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes in, depending on your setup and your wood. Could be 15 minutes if you've got if you got a really aggressive setup with a lot of sort of middle size and smaller size kindling. You can get it going much faster, but this is going pretty quickly. And I mean, look at that. Look at those secondary burns. I mean, that's like ideal. That's ideal. We're at 8 minutes. So you can it can produce a little bit of, it's either smoke or steam. It's kind of hard to tell. It's not that gray. But that will, most of it will get reburned up in these tubes. So that will create additional heat rather than those gases getting wasted and going up your chimney and creating creosote. They'll burn in those tubes and they'll kick off more heat with less pollution. This is a Jotul F400 wood stove. I like it a lot. It's a really good stove, especially for me. I'm in the East Coast, and our weather's in New Jersey, Jersey coast. It's, you know, it's not that extreme, so we don't need a monster. I don't need to keep this 24/7 all winter. I usually have fires, a couple fires a day. If it's really cold, if it's in the 20s or 30s, I'll burn it 24/7 or close to that. But if it's in the 40s or above, I'll have like 2 to 3 fires a day, good sized fires, and that's enough to keep a Cape house warm. It's not really a very well insulated Cape house, but it's good enough to keep it warm. It keeps this room over 80. It's kind of a smallish room, and the rest of the house is in the high 60s, 70s, depending on how close we are to this. But it's a really good stove. I like it a lot. I'd like to try a stove that the logs load what we call north-south. So that would be front to back rather than side to side like we have it here. But you can do that in this stove. You just have to use like 9-inch pieces, so it's not really very practical. And I've done it, and I do have a video on it. And it burns great that way. But it burns great this way too. So as you can see, it's... I mean, this is great. We're at 11 minutes here. Let's see if there's anything down below. Yep, so we get a little bit down below. Those coals are probably starting to catch right now. And that air will get sucked underneath this for the most part, underneath the pile. up through the middle and up through the back, and that will just help the burn as well, with the air going fully through these splits rather than just getting clogged up and maybe just coming up the front. If it's too clogged up and you don't leave enough space, like in here and in here, you don't leave enough space for the air to move around. So that's a big help, just to get those logs off the bottom. Even if it's just a little bit, a ½ inch, that's fine. As long as there's a little bit of room, that air will whip through there. And we still have these secondaries going great. My temperature looks like looks like we're about 350. If this was a reload, if I reload on hot coals, I'd probably start turning the air down now, this air control. But since it's a cold start, I want to warm everything up. I want to warm the flue up. I want to warm all the bricks up around here. I want to warm the stove itself up. So I'll let it get hotter before we start turning that down a little bit. Starting to feel the heat from this stove. I'm sitting about 3.5, 4 feet away. Starting to get pretty hot. Temperature on the stovepipe is about 375. I'll pull back a little bit, getting a little hot. Approaching 400 up on the stovepipe. Tempted to turn down the draft a little bit, but like I said, it's a cold start, so I really want to get everything nice and hot. I want to get that flue nice and hot to help limit the creosote buildup up there, and also just to warm the stove up, make it more efficient. So as you can see, we're fully caught here. That was a really good burn. Really good start anyway. You can see the bottom's caught. Those coals underneath it are caught. Not a lot, there's a few coals down there. They're caught. Everything's caught really well. I'll turn that draft down in a little bit. I'm gonna stop it here because this is getting kind of long, and I'll come back in maybe 10-15 minutes and just show you how this fire progresses. What we want is for these logs in the top and the middle to sort of drop down and collapse onto those lower logs, in the middle of those lower logs, so they don't collapse out front onto the ceramic glass door. And that should happen with the setup that we did here. And I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay guys, it's only been a few minutes, but we're getting up to 400 on the stovepipe. So I'm gonna turn the draft down a little bit. This is getting pretty hot. We'll just see. I'll go down about a third. We'll see what that does. We're going to close the draft in slow increments, especially when it's starting from a cold start. It could be a little more aggressive when you're starting off of a really hot bed of coals. But with this cold start, sometimes you choke it out if you close that draft down too quickly. So, you know, quarter move or third move for the first move down is usually pretty good. Just see where it goes, see if it settles in, and then just continue on a little bit from there. Stovepipes at 400. You can see it slowed the fire down a little bit. My goal is to keep these secondary burns going really well. We're going to go down to about halfway here. See what that does for us. So you can see at this point it definitely slows the fire down, which is actually good. As long as we can keep those secondary burns up at the top, that's really what we're striving for. You can see how it's adjusting now. We'll see where it settles in. It's possible that that chokes it down a little too much, or could be okay. We'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. So the way this is burning to me is a little bit on the edge. It's on the edge and not quite enough secondary burn. I'll let it settle in because I've seen it do this before where it looks like it's sort of starting to go out a little bit and slow down a little too much, and then it just settles in and it burns really nicely. But I don't really know until I give it a little bit more time. Stovepipe temp is still at right around 400. Pretty much has stayed steady. Yep, same it stayed steady on that 400 mark this whole last maybe 10 minutes or so. So this burn is okay. You know, ideally I'd like to see just the secondary jet shooting out, and more of them. This is a mix between primary and secondary, and it's okay. The stove temperature, the stovepipe temperature is good, so that's okay. And I want some heat in this house because it's been a cold start and we need a little bit of heat. But I wouldn't want to choke it down any more than this. At this point, it would probably shut off those secondary flames, and I don't want to do that. I could even open it up slightly if I really wanted to boost the heat output. But this is hot. I mean, I'm sitting in front of this stove, and it's getting hot, and I'm going to have to start moving back pretty soon. Even though it looks like the flames have died down a little bit, and which they have, it's still producing a lot of heat. But this fire rate for me is just kind of on the edge. But it's good for a cold start. Got a lot of nice heat coming off of this. And I'll leave it here for a little bit unless the fire changes. And then I'll adjust. So I'm going to turn it off here and I'll come back when we're a little further down the road. Okay guys, here's the draft setting now. We're just a little bit past halfway closed. It's hot. It's hot in front here. I'm going to turn the draft down and show you what happens. Just going to do small increments. Once we get past half, we just want to do small increments. That's a little increment, but it should have a big effect on the fire. It might snuff it out, and I'll show you what happens. We'll see. So you can see we're getting some secondary burn up at the top, a little primary burn going up in the secondary burn. Yeah, this is okay. This, you know, I'd much prefer to see a stronger secondary burn up there. Yeah, I'd say this is like marginal. The stovepipe temp looks like it's at 375. So we're still okay there. But, you know, this is okay, I guess. Get you in there. It's hot. Yeah, it's hot. It's too hot to put the camera right there. So this is, you know, don't be fooled. Even at this rate, it's kicking off nice heat. So I'll let it go like this for a little bit longer, and we'll see where we are a little bit further down the road. Okay, this is kind of what they call ghost flames, where the flames will sort of pop up and out, in and out. You see them, especially on the right side over there. Small primary flame going up and then lighting the top flames up on the secondary tubes. This to me is a little bit too cool for my liking. The stove pipe temperature has dropped to between 325 and 350. I like it a little bit hotter than this. This is just a little slow for me. But you know, it will burn like this. It will burn okay like this. I don't think it's producing any smoke at the top. But if I go any cooler than this, it will. There'll be a little bit of smoke mixed in. It won't be doing a full burn, a full reburn of the gases. So I like it a little bit more aggressive than this. Yeah, I should also say it's about 45, 50 degrees outside, so the draft isn't really pulling as hard as it would as if it was much colder outside. So that makes this draft control, you have to leave a little bit more air going into the fire when it's warmer out. You can see the splits are starting to collapse. They're collapsing down into the middle in front of this lower log. Behind this lower log, they're going to collapse down without rolling out, and they've started to do that. So I opened up the draft to about halfway, midway, because it's just getting a little bit too cool, and you can see it's picked up the burn rate. We've got it's definitely warming up. You can hear the metal expanding, and to me, I'd rather burn it like this than a little too cool. And this is a good rate. Stovepipe temperature dropped to about between 300 and 325, and it'll at least hold steady there. It'll probably climb a little bit from here on out, and until this starts totally burning down and turning into a coal bed. So I'm going to leave it at this rate, and I'll just check back in maybe one or two more times, show you how the final collapse goes. Okay guys, it's been about 10 minutes or so since I made that draft adjustment. Here's where we are. The stove pipe, the temperature is up to about between 350 and 375. It's burning nicely. It's kicking out a lot of heat. It's collapsing in the middle. That's going to make a really nice coal bed. I'll probably just let this fire burn out though, as it's 45, 50 degrees outside, and we don't really need that much more heat. So it's burning well. It's burning really well. I probably actually could have turned it down a little bit more again. Could have adjusted it back down a little. But this is good. And there it is. We'll see you guys in the next one.